Another billboard has gone up that is negative about a company, and it seems like things are getting out of control for big brands out there. Aki, what is this new billboard that's gone up slating FNB?
It's a disgruntled client of theirs whose house was actually auctioned without warning. And apparently this case has been going on for a couple of years. I think the actual billboard was out there for a while before this. But I think what's interesting is that, now it's become suddenly newsworthy because of the whole Cell C experience with Mr. George Procas. And I think what's important over here is that it's giving customers a lot more courage to go out there and take some action. I think that's, for me, the big lesson, is that customers, from a sense of powerlessness in the past, where they were saying, well, what can I do to fight these guys? Suddenly, they are saying, hey, here's one man who made a difference, and maybe I can make that difference too. So this is where the power of, for example, social media and the internet has played an incredibly, strong role in terms of giving consumers and customers the courage to actually do something instead of doing nothing.
So Nico Niemand, who had this trailer billboard, actually parked it outside the same mall where the Cell C billboard was. And it was actually a coincidence because the FNB Home Loan headquarters is actually stationed at that mall. So he had been parked there quite often over the last 2 years. But he hasn't been taken as seriously as he has now for those reasons that you've given. And do big brands really have to start worrying more about how they react to this type of consumer activism?
Absolutely. I think, how many times we say, the timing needs to be right. And in fact, right now, because of the Cell C saga, the timing was absolutely right, sort of a perfect storm. So what happens in the case of Nico Niemand is that perhaps, we as consumers weren't ready to take it up as ready as we are right now. You've got to remember there's been an accumulation of lots and lots of things over the last few months, over the last few weeks, in terms of, for example, Eskom and South African Airways losing money. And of course, the post office strike, which has obviously impacted on customers. The whole, effect of what happened in Parliament last Thursday night has created a very emotional reaction in people. And I think what's happened is that in the past, where people would have maybe just let it go and said, it's just too much effort. Now, suddenly, because of this big burden that consumers are experiencing, and because of Christmas coming up and lots of expenses and possibly no bonuses, just a perfect storm to get, consumer reaction. Is it going to go away? I don't know. Nobody can predict the future. But what we are seeing in the world is that there's a trend towards, using YouTube to attack companies, for example. There was a famous case in the United States of America where a chap whose guitar was broken in a United Airlines flight wrote a song called United Breaks Guitars. And that's been seen 16 million times on YouTube. All of which is probably unimportant, except for the fact that the reaction by consumers against United Airlines was just, over the top. And essentially, the share price went down and lost 10% of its value, which worked out to about $180 million in the market cap of the company. And they've never recovered. This thing happened, already a couple of years ago. So we're picking up lots and lots more examples of how, the social media has become powerful. And of course, now we've translated it into traditional media like billboards, where consumers are saying, I've had enough and I'm not going to take this anymore, so to speak.
But the traditional medium of a billboard is actually only relevant insofar that it gets photographed and then put onto social media. So people like to take photos and share those photos, so it makes it more meaningful in a way. But does the consumer have to...
David versus Goliath situation, and we always root for the David. We always root for the weak ones.
And that's a good point you mentioned there, because what happens if the David isn't actually right? Does it matter?
I must tell you that on the one hand, I completely believe that customers are not always right. I'm a businessman. I run my own little business. Customers are not always right. But, and this is the big one, they are always our customers. The problem is that we need them more than they need us. If it was the other way around, if customers were begging us on their knees and saying, please sell me something, that would be fine. But in today's world of, extreme competition and customers with, higher expectations than ever before in human history, it's the other way around. We need our customers more than they need us. And that, for me, is what has changed over the last few years. I'll just give you one simple example. My dear old dad, he always, when he was alive, used to say, but, my boy, you're a bit of a troublemaker, because, customers must get what they pay for and all of this. But that's changed now. And it doesn't matter if they're right. What is important is their perceptions. So, for example, the last time I looked, there must have been at least 10,000 people who've made some comment on Twitter or YouTube or, any one of the various websites, Hello Peter and so on. And what happens, okay, is it doesn't actually matter if they are right. What does matter is their perceptions of the big bully going out there and taking on the small guys.